Okay. All right. We are live. Okay. All right. So we are talking about the blue cards. Hey, welcome back, Darth. All right. Well, all right, cool. People are funneling in. I guess we might as well just get started right away then. So, first off, we're talking about Air Elemental, which is a 4/4 that costs 3 and 2 blue mana, and it's got flying. So, it's Sarah Angel, but slightly worse. Um, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good card. Um, there like really isn't too much to say about it though, right? It's a French vanilla creature. Is it's good. Like it's good by the standards of the time. Rather, it's not good today. It's not even that particularly great back then. But well, that's not true. It's basically Sarah Angel, which is really good. Doesn't have all of the same advantages, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty basic card. I'm trying to think of things to talk about to keep it relatively interesting, but there really isn't much here. It was illustrated by Richard Thomas, and the art's pretty cool. I like it. I don't love it. I don't particularly care about this piece. Um, so with that said, we might as well move on to a little bit more interesting of a card. Oh, thanks, Richard. That means a lot. I'm glad you enjoy. And yeah, the art is iconic. I really love. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, but I really love the artwork on the old cards, especially just how like unprofessional some of it gets. It's more human. I don't know. Um, I just appreciate it more. Uh, like this one on Animate Artifact. The art's really cool. It's by Douglas Schuler, but this is actually an interesting card. So Animate Artifact, it costs 3 and a blue for 4 mana total, and you can enchant an artifact with it. Target artifact is now an artifact creature with both power and toughness equal to its casting cost. Target retains all of its original abilities as well. Has no effect on artifact creatures. Uh, Not really. Animate Dead brings something from the graveyard. This takes an artifact and makes it a artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its mana cost or mana value. So this is kind of a bad combo piece because in ABU you could use this on Time Vault and then add Instill Energy to it, and then you could untap it an extra time each turn, and thus just take infinite turns. Like a peek into the yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not sure I could even figure that information out, but I'll add that to my list of things to look into when I'm bored or trying to figure out another video. You can turn your Aladdin's lamp. That unironically might be the best use of it. Of Aladdin's lamp. Animate Artifact has some other cool things you could do with it. Uh, you could also animate your Icy Manipulator, which a 4/4 beater is pretty solid. But then you could instill energy it, and you could tap shit down and either still attack with it or tap twice, two things down. So there's some funny things specifically between Animate Artifact and Instill Energy can be kind of a funny thing. Is it worth it to spend this to kill a Lotus? It certainly can be. Like that depends a lot on the situation, right? Like part of what makes Lotus good is that it's so versatile, but there's like stranger things have happened. Like not too long ago, pretty famous vintage match happened where one of the players used their Oko to turn their own Black Lotus into a 3/3 elk so they could win the game by beating down that way. So there's definitely it is 4 mana to do that, and if they have anything to do with that mana, they can just crack it in response, right? Hey Link, glad to see you back. Um so I would say there's probably game states where that's like, especially like if you're playing back in the day where mana burn is a thing, right? So like them cracking it in response and having nothing to do with it would either just burn them back in the day or wouldn't be relevant now and would still achieve your objective if they couldn't use the mana. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a tall ask, and I wouldn't run this just to deal with Black Lotuses or stuff like that, but I would say it's probably more worth it on a Mox um, than a Lotus, but either one definitely has potential. It just depends. Um, But yeah, this card's pretty versatile. It's not super good, even by the standards of the time, but it's interesting. There's a lot of different like things you can do with it. There's like you said, you could the fact that you can even consider using this to fuck over a Lotus is interesting. Um, the fact that it could turn an Icy Manipulator into a pretty aggressive beat stick is interesting. It's an interesting card. Um, It's not the worst card too, and there is some fun things you can do with it. Nothing you can do with it is like the best thing to do, but yeah, it is interesting. It's also worth noting that a lot of the artifacts at the time are either like low cost, really fucking good, or like 10 mana and kind of bad. They're yeah, there are like some mid-range artifacts, but for the most part, they're either really good or really bad. And in most cases, not all of them, but most cases, the higher mana cost ones are pretty much always worse. Um, but yeah, that's really all I have to say on Animate Artifact. So let's go on to Blue Elemental Blast. I love this card. I love this card just slightly less than I like Red Elemental Blast, because Red Elemental Blast is just more interesting to me personally, because red doesn't get to do that too often, and doing it to blue, the color that does it, is really fucking funny. Um, but Blue Elemental Blast is also pretty good. It kind of speaks to the rivalry between red and blue that they had early on, and also like in alpha and stuff, red and blue were kind of the elemental colors, the colors that dealt with uh, the elements, which is interesting. But yeah, this is generally in most situations objectively worse than red elemental blast, because usually blue has blue has counters that can counter things that are not red, and generally in higher power stuff, blue cards are better than red cards on average. So this has less chance to shine in most situations, but I do like it. I do think in certain situations it's pretty funny. And you can use this with Chaos Lace to turn something into that color and then blow it up. That costs you 2 cards and 2 mana, but if you were gonna try something like this, I think that is the most efficient way to do it. Which just and that's not really that good. It's interesting, but and you are in the colors where you are likely to have the most access to card advantage, which you would need since you're ditching 2 cards for one. Um, but yeah, these cards are interesting. The red one is way better, um, but I like them. I think this is like the right way to do color hate. Something that like can fuck their whole game plan over and gives you a lot of versatility, but doesn't necessarily just end the game, right? Like you blow up their big thing, they can still cast their spells, right? Like stuff like this is way better than like say Gloom. Um, yeah, yeah, they've kind of at this point they've pretty much. I don't want to say they've given up the color pie because they haven't, but I would argue it's become far more superficial. Um, it wasn't super well defined back in the old days, but they did have like some tenets that they stuck to that they just don't really care to anymore. And part of that is just exploring new design space, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I agree. It's one of the reasons I prefer the older stuff is just because the colors, while like blue kind of can do everything to some degree. Oh, hey, Tom. Um, there is still like a firmer identity between all the colors, even if that identity is mostly represented in how brutal their color hate is. But I like it. Um, the art was done by Richard Thomas. Did I say that already? I can't remember. But I like it. It's very, very cool, in my opinion. But let's move on. Let's check out another really interesting. See, the blue cards are going to be fun. There's a lot of interesting blue cards. Brain Geyser. So, Brain Geyser is pretty interesting. Brain Geyser costs X and 2 blue mana. It's a sorcery, and target player must draw X cards. Uh, that's pretty cool. So you can, obviously, the most common use of this is to like play out all your shit, tap all your mana, and draw up like as many more cards as you can, right? But you can also make a bunch of mana and deck your opponent with this. That's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. How how viable doing something like that will depend entirely on like the cards around it, obviously. Because if you can make infinite mana, this is a decent kill spell. But it's also just good at drawing you cards. I guess that's the main part of the card, but it's the slightly less interesting part. It's just drawing a bunch of cards. I like drawing cards. I mean, who doesn't? But Brain Geyser is interesting. Yeah, Mark Teaton is a really good artist. Um, yeah, this was illustrated by Mark Teaton, and the art is awesome. He definitely not his best work. It's not like bad. He has some real bangers. This one is interesting though, and I like it. Very very thematic with blue and drawing a shitload of cards. Uh, I guess there really isn't too much else to say about this. This one's obviously a rare and was yeah, the blue fireball. Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Or the black mind twist. Or the blue mind twist. Um, but yeah, it's very good. Um, I guess this was restricted, like in standard at the time, for a while at least. So you could only play one copy of it, but still probably worth playing. Uh, I guess there isn't too much else to say about it though, so let's head on to Clone. Clone's another interesting card. Clone's another one that there's a lot we can say about it. Um, I guess we'll start by reading the card. This one's particularly wordy. Clone is a star for 3 and a blue mana. So for 4 mana, you get a clone. Upon summoning, Clone acquires all characteristics, including color, of any one creature in play on either side. Any creature enchantments on the original creature are not copied. Not copied. Clone retains Clone retains these characteristics even after original creature is destroyed. Clone cannot be summoned if there are no creatures in play. Yeah, that's pretty wordy. Nowadays, it just says you may have this creature enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, and it's a 0/0. So that's nice and simple. Um, but it's really wordy for that effect. I suppose the most interesting thing to talk about with clone and clone effects, because there are a lot of cards that do something similar, and we call them clone effects, partly because this card exists. Um, and for a while they stopped making them because they weren't they didn't fit in the rules, I guess. For a while, they had to stop printing clone effects because the rules of the game did not accommodate them when they were trying to make the rules comprehensive, rather. Uh, yeah, I also like the options clone creates. That's the thing too, right? Like I've already talked a decent bit about this card, and we haven't even talked about it mechanically. This is really interesting. For 4 mana, you could get a Colossus Asardia, right? Like for 4 mana, you could get anything, right? It brings parity to the board if you clone their thing, and if you clone your thing, it makes it even more worse for your opponent, right? Because now they have two of the thing to deal with. Clone's really interesting, and I would say fairly costed. I think the clones that are cheaper are a little rough mana wise, but I don't know. Um, Clone's cool. I like cool. I like clone. I think it's really interesting. Uh, it was illustrated by Julie Barrow, and that's the art's good. The art's decent. Yeah, I guess that's all I have. It's interesting. There's a lot of options, but like the options depend entirely on what is on the board, right? Those are your options. And so depending on what those are, depends on how good clone is. So it's really hard to talk about it in like less niche situations. So let's just move on to something kind of similar with control magic. Control magic is pretty sweet. Control magic costs 2 and 2 blue mana. It's an enchant creature, and you control target creature until enchantment is discarded or game ends. If target creature is already tapped, it stays tapped until you can untap it. If destroyed, target creature is put in its owner's graveyard. So this is pretty good. Um, it's really funny with like old Magic cards how they felt the need to like, because there was no way to like distribute rulings like they do now. They kind of just tacked them onto the card, like whatever they thought would be the confusing aspects. They just wrote that in as plain of text as they could. Um, if destroyed, target creature is put into its owner's grave is pretty cool. I don't think that technically works that way anymore. Like now that they've eroded it to you control enchanted creature, doesn't say anything about the creature going to the graveyard uh if this enchantment is removed. And I don't think any enchantment being removed kills a creature. But back in the day, this like was effectively removal for a creature. First, you would get the creature, and then if they dealt with it somehow, it would still remove the creature. So the problem would still be dealt with. Um, it's a really strong card. It's uncommon, which is pretty crazy, honestly, if you think about it. Especially with the slow pace of play and how everybody was just doing their best to jam the big creatures as fast as they could because big number good. Control magic could be brutal, especially in the environment you usually see it in. Um, yeah, the art is very cool. I like the art. I don't know if I understand it entirely, but I guess it is kind of hard to like illustrate something being controlled. So, um, I guess I see now that they're bindings. Yeah. Point is I like the art. It's appeasing to the eye. I don't really have anything to say about this one though. Um, but yeah, another interesting card. This card can be pretty frustrating to play against, and it's really good in Chandelar. Uh, illustrated by Damon Willick. Did I say that? I can't remember. Um, Copy Artifact is another really good and pretty interesting card. So Copy Artifact is an enchantment. and when it enters the battlefield, it's a copy of an artifact, except it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. Um, but that's all that it takes. It just takes the enchantment type. Otherwise, it is an exact copy. It doesn't even retain its color. So like if you copy artifact something, you can no longer red elemental blast that. That's something that I learned pretty recently. Um, but this is great, right? It's super good on stuff like Juggernaut or Icy Manipulator or like a Mox. Um, Although the Moxen aren't in revised, so that matters less. But the point is, it's as good as an artifact is. So again, this depends on meta and what's going on. It is really efficient for what it does, but the best use cases of it are probably like if you're running artifacts you want to copy, because you can't determine you can't control for what's in your opponent's deck, right? So so if you are going to actually run it, I would probably have at least some artifacts like a Juggernaut or an Icy Manipulator or something. Jaloom Tome, right? Like just anything. Although Jaloom Tome, does it tap to make you draw a card, or I can't remember if that's a mono or not. That might be good or it might not be good. I can't remember the card that well for some reason. Um, Point is there are targets, but like anything, you kind of got to make your own targets for something to be consistent. Oh, the art's by Amy Weber. I love it. I think they are very funny little effigies or whatever the fuck they are. Yeah, exactly. It gives you 8 copies of an artifact, right? Um, so yeah, so there are definitely places and times where this is really useful. But let's move on to Counterspell. It has just been banger after banger. Not one of these blue cards has been something where I'm like, whatever. 5 copies of copy artifact in the garage. Very cool. Very cool. Uh, Counterspell is probably one of the best cards in the game. It is 2 mana and prevents anything from being done. I love this card so much. It's an instinct, costs 2 blue mana, counters target spell as it is being cast. Which, it's only a spell as it's being cast, so it's a little redundant. It is an all-time classic. People either love or hate this card. Um, I'm a fan of it personally, but I can understand this is really strong. Um, does kind of force you to be really heavy in blue. Yeah, the no card exactly. The no for 2 blue mana. Still though, like if you don't want to be told no, don't do it into 2 blue mana, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. There's not too much to say about Counterspell, right? It's the OG. It's good. It stops the thing. It's game defining. It is. It's a mechanic that is incredibly game defining. Um, the game would be entirely different without counterspells. Like as far as like the strategies you would consider, and um, whether you think that's for the best or not is entirely up to personal opinion on how you like to play games. But it is game defining. It's an insane ability. Obviously, there's bunches of counter spells, but even in alpha there was 3 in blue. No, 4 because of blue elemental blast. There was 4. Uh, I'm pretty sure they're all still in revised, so we'll get to them. But counterspell is by far the most versatile. The art was done by Mark Poole, and I'm personally not too big of a fan of this. It's okay. It's kind of another thing like how the fuck do you draw something not happening? So like the idea of counterspell itself is kind of a tall ask. But it kind of just looks like dude's got really long fingernails. Um, This is an art that like took me a long time. Um, yeah. Sorry, chat popped in and I read that. Let me finish this thought quick. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the art. It's okay. It's kind of funny and it's grown on me more over the years, but it's probably my least favorite of the classic Counterspell arts. It is goofy art. Um, yeah, see, there's definitely humor to be had in it, and it is funny that it's a flaccid spell, for sure. Um, I don't hate the art, but it's definitely probably one of my least favorite pool pieces overall. Um, Interesting to me that from the very start they took counter as too obvious a term to bother with explanatory text. Yeah, it is explained in the game manual that came with the starter decks, but also this was very much heavily like inspired and targeted towards the D&D audience. So a lot of things like if you yeah a lot of the like stuff that they took credit or just assumed you would understand is like D&D stuff. But it was explained in the rule book. Yeah, but Counterspell's really good. I guess I don't have anything else to say about it. So, yeah. All right. Creature Bond. So, Creature Bond, I guess, is pretty impressive as being the first blue card we're going to talk about that's like meh. So, Creature Bond is a enchant creature, costs one and a blue. If target creature is placed in the graveyard, Creature Bond does an amount of damage equal to the creature's toughness to creature's controller. So this definitely is not useful. It's really brutal against a wall deck if you then uh oh hey blue blue. Yeah, sorry. Um you can watch it later. It'll go live so or I won't take it down when it goes live, so you can catch it later if you want to hear. We did talk about some banger spells, so because we're already on Creature Bond. Uh Anyways, what was I saying? Um oh yeah, yeah. Um Creature Bond is decent. It's funny against walls. If you blow up a wall, it'll deal a shitload of damage to the creature. But this requires that your opponent's playing a creature deck. It requires that creature's toughness is worth the amount of mana, which is two, which is not high, but it's not that low either. Not for an effect like this. It's just not particularly good of a card. The amount of steps that you'd have to go through to make it do something useful is just a little bit too high for it to be consistent enough for it to be a good effect. It is interesting though. The art was done by Anson Maddox, and the art's pretty funny. It's pretty funny to me. Uh, yeah, just a weird elf chick resting her arm on the head of a dragon. Pretty wild. Um, I guess there's not really too much else to say about Creature Bond. It certainly can be interesting, but it's not good. It's not a good card. It is blue burn though. I guess that's kind of interesting. Blue used to get some access to being able to do burn damage, which is interesting. They most of it was convoluted, and you had to go through a bunch of dumb steps, which makes sense, right? It's blue. Then we have Drain Power. Drain Power is a sorcery, costs 2 blue mana. Opponent must draw all mana from his or her available lands. This mana and all mana in opponent's mana pool drains into your mana pool. You can't take less than all your opponent's mana. Righteous Creature Bond into Arabian Vision. You're right. No, that's probably fine. That probably doesn't fold to Mind Twist the dot deck, right? Man, that would be a fun deck to play though, right? Righteousness, creature bond, and terror. What happens when they what happens when they drop an artifact or black creature? Um, oh yeah, drain power. Right. So I've read the text, but not the Oracle text. The old text is great. The Oracle text on this is just target player activates a mana ability of each land they control, then that player loses all unspent mana, and you add the mana lost this way. Uh, so this reads like it would be really good. Yeah, yeah, scoop immediately. Cards like this are really bad for a couple reasons. These days they're even worse because like if you have any sort of mana sink, you can just tap everything in response and um just dump it into that. Um, but otherwise, like, man, I don't know. It it reads good. It's never like practically done anything. I don't know what to say about it, but it's not a good card. The art was done by Douglas Schuler, I guess. Um, the art's pretty funny, kind of fantastical. Yeah, cards like this in mana short read super powerful. I was like noob trapped by them when I first started. It's like, damn, it's crazy, but it just never ends up going your way. I don't know. Um, let's move on to Energy Flux. Energy Flux is definitely interesting. So it's an enchantment that costs 2 and a blue, and all artifacts in play now require an upkeep cost of 2 in addition to any other upkeep costs they may have. If the upkeep cost for the artifact is not paid, the artifact must be discarded. Dun dun dun. Yeah, all artifacts you have to pay 2 or they sacrifice them. If you're running up against like fucking a Tog Moxen or some crazy bullshit, this could potentially be really good. But most especially at the time, most decks didn't really run too many artifacts. Partially because they were just like uncommons and people didn't have as many cards back then. Um, but also like a lot of them are bad. Obviously, there are some like really good ones, and that's where a card like this becomes kind of okay. It's likely you'd rather be if you were playing against people doing broken enough things for this to be pretty good. You would likely rather be doing those broken things than fucking around with 3 mana to cast this. Uh, but there's definitely situations where this is funny. This was illustrated by Kaja Folio, one of my favorite artists for sure. I like her work. This one's okay. It's definitely not my favorite, but I don't hate it. Um, but yeah, that's kind of really all there is to say about Energy Flux. Yeah, yeah, I guess. Yeah, if your friends are playing Mox and like stuff like that, this could be good. Um, Another card really good with Moxen is Atog from Arabian Nights. No, Antiquities. From Antiquities. Atog's from Antiquities. That card's really good with the Moxen. But yeah, upkeep costs are kind of forgotten. One, they're also just hard to track. Like they aren't fun for sure, but they're also hard to track, and they're one of the like most common fuck ups in the game, right? And one thing that they try to do when they decide whether they're going to like keep abilities or not is how often does it get fucked with. Like like it's possible they loved banding internally. I don't think that's the case, but it's possible they're like, this is the coolest shit ever, but like it kept getting fucked up and like they constantly would get feedback that people just didn't know how the fuck it worked. And so they're like, okay. So there's lots of concepts they've dropped throughout the years that like people just couldn't figure out. And upkeep costs is probably somewhere on that spectrum. Uh, let's talk about feedback. Feedback's interesting. Feedback costs 2 and a blue, just like the last one. Feedback does 1 damage to controller of target enchantment during its controller's upkeep. Hey, look at that. Upkeep triggers damages. Yeah, this is 3 mana to deal a burn damage to an opponent. Oh yeah, this is an enchantment. So you have to target this onto an enchantment, which was set in the text box, but the point stands. This is pretty niche. Your opponent has to be playing enchantments for this to do anything, unless you want to deal damage to yourself during your upkeep for whatever reason. Maybe you're feeling froggy. If you're not fucking around though, this is pretty niche. It's hard to ever justify something like this. Unless the meta has really powerful enchantments, then maybe you could. I guess in a world with like Sylvan libraries, maybe you could argue that this would be a funny way to like just discourage the use of that card because it takes damage to keep the cards. And this would add some small amount of pressure, but like just blow it up, right? Or like just do anything else. Yeah, it's meh. Um, but like sometimes I try to defend things. Like you could do something with this, but it's just everything that it's kind of meh. Unless you are specifically playing a like I'm gonna slowly burn them deck, but it's not good enough to be a win condition, and it doesn't do anything else. So like what is it? What do you do with it? Um. Oh, it was illustrated by Quentin Hoover. Let's talk about that. The art is actually pretty cool on this. Uh, Quentin Hoover's okay. He's not one of my favorite artists, but the but he's definitely not bad. I don't necessarily like the stenciled style so much. Not stenciled, thick lines style that he has. It's not bad. It's just not my personal favorite. Um, but he does do some banger art. Yeah, yeah. Move on to Flight. Next we have Flight. Flight's pretty simple. It's an enchant creature, 1 blue. Target creature is now a flying creature. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Why would people talk about it? One, like stuff like the Moxen were too rare, and that's like, oh no, feedback. No, yeah, yeah, feedback's just bad. Flight's pretty cool. Um, this is a card that I suppose could be worth it, right? Like if you were gonna hit them with something heavy, yeah, Flying Juggernaut is pretty solid. If you have the card slots and are in the colors to like toss this at something, um, it could potentially be really good. And blue is a good color to like support Juggy anyway because blue or white, just because you are going to be targeted by every piece of removal in the fucking game because almost all of it hits Juggernaut. Um, yeah, there is a whole squad in the back. The art's also really cool. Um, this isn't like a good card per se. It's still like flying is really good. It's probably one of the best of the keywords, right? Just it helps you get in. It's fantastic. Flight's pretty cool. There's definitely situations where it's worth it, but it's still kind of a there's not much value on the card. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely better than Lance, and that's the reason. Evasion's better than First Strike for sure. Um, yeah, yeah, I'd say I'm mild on this card. Like, it's fine. I don't think I've ever run it. I've ever had to like. I would say you would probably want to have some sort of like advantage that you get from casting enchantments, whatever that is, and then light probably goes up a little bit. Uh, but yeah, as far as the 1 mana, I give a keyword enchantments. Flight is probably the best. Um, But there's really nothing else to say about it. Anson Maddox did it. The art's great. I really like Anson's work. And this one's no different. Um, but next is another really interesting card. Hurkyl's Recall. Hurkyl's Recall is an instant that costs 1 and a blue mana, and all artifacts in play owned by a target player are returned to target player's hand. Any enchantments on those artifacts are discarded. Yeah, there's definitely value in that, for sure. But you would still need to be able to have like I like it with Juggernaut, right? Because Juggernaut hits 4 times and they're dead. I think anything that requires more hits than that, you need a little bit more of a plan to it. But like I said, I don't hate it. I just don't think it's necessarily that great of a strategy. Uh, Hurkyl's Recall, however, very very interesting card. It's important to note that it says target all artifacts in play owned, not controlled. That means so like owned means what cards were in your deck at the start of the duel, basically, and controlled means what cards you have control on the the battlefield, right? So especially with so this can be interesting, but it is worth noting that it's specifically owned. Hurkyl's Recall is pretty good. If your opponent is playing a bunch of expensive artifacts, this is a great removal piece. You can also like use it with your own Moxen to like pl- play them, tap them, bounce them, play them again, tap them again. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with Hurkyl's Recall. I don't know that it's necessarily the best card in this in Revised because Revised removes a decent chunk of the bullshit that makes this card good. Um, but it's still really good. Like it's super efficient. Even if you only hit 1 or 2 things with it, like that's still pretty much an unsummon, right? And the ceiling is so much higher. And the art is fantastic. The art is the yeah, and it's an instant. Instant speed stuff is always better than sorcery speed stuff. Um, in fact, I used a Hurkyl's Recall in my Chandelar video where I show how you can use a bronze tablet to basically steal an entire deck because the way bronze tablet works is you tap it and then swap it with a card, but it goes on the stack to do that, and if you respond to that action with a Hurkyl's Recall or like a boomerang or something, then the bronze tablet goes back to your hand and you still get the other card. uh, really stupid stuff, but Hurkyl's Recall is something that allowed some bullshit like that to happen. So instant speed bounced and instant speed pretty much anything can just be really good for situations exactly like that and many other. Illustrated by Nene Thomas. The art was fantastic, as we've already said. It's cheap, good. Yeah. Its only downside is that it's a little bit niche, but not anywhere near as niche as some things. Uh, yeah. I guess let's move on. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's a great card. Blue cards have all been kind of bangers. Kind of bangers. And speaking of bangers, yeah, that's another good point about Hurkyl. It is multicolor friendly. Just having one of a color pip is super good, especially at a time where like the dual lands are common and City of Brass exists, plus like Black Lotus. It's just very easy to be 5 color at the time if you have the better cards. Ba ba ba. Ireland Fish, just Conus? I don't know. This is a 6/8, pretty big boy. For 4 and 3 blue mana for a total of 7, you get a 6/8, and you must pay blue, blue, blue. So you got to pay 3 blue during your upkeep phase to untap Island Fish. Island Fish cannot attack unless opponent has islands in play, and Island Fish is destroyed immediately if you have no islands in play. Uh, Hell yeah, big fish. Oh my god. This is so much work for a 6/8, dude. All right, so first you have to have a fucking phantasmal terrain, which lets you change a land into something else. So then you phantasmal terrain so that they have an island. So you basically just make a fake island, and then this fish can hit him in the face for 6. You still got to pay 3 blue. It says island in the type. Man, that's that's funny. It does say island in the type box, right? I should be able to just tap this for a blue. Is that a good use of it though? Like, cause you gotta pay 3 at upkeep, and it's a 6/8. Yeah, they did that for all of the colors, but the blue ones do seem to take the biggest hit. Is all these creatures just have to be absolutely unplayable. Oh hey, Greta, what up, dude? Glad to have you here. Awesome to see you make it. We're talking about if you just got here, you've missed like every good blue card in revised, and we're now talking about Island Fish Jaconis. It's a 6/8, right? Like maybe you could hit him with this, but it's got the fucking island home, which isn't even a real keyword anymore. Um, yeah, it is. It is good. All of this is like extra. Any one of the like paying 3 for your upkeep for a 6/8 with no keywords that you paid 7 mana for is rough on its own, right? Island home is pretty fucking rough on its home. It's just it's crazy how many downsides they piled onto this thing. The art's fantastic though. Like it's just a dumb island fish. Very funny. Um, this was illustrated by Jesper Mierfers, and he did a great job. Is this destroyed by? No, because it doesn't say land. Because Armageddon says destroy all lands, not destroy all islands. Now you could make it. You could start a fist fight in old school if you like fucking hit this with a tsunami, right? Of course, if they didn't have any that argument would be facetious, but wouldn't even matter because the island fish would die anyway because of the island home. So, so wait, yeah, this would be destroyed by Armageddon. You're right because it would blow up the islands. It's not even funny. It's just true. It's just true. This is really bad. This card is really bad, which is a shame because it's really hilarious. Losing it to Armageddon would be pretty rough. Although Armageddon can do some other way more brutal stuff that we'll see later on. Maybe not today because they're in other colors. I don't I don't know how far we're gonna go with this. But we are gonna move past Island Fish Draconis. Uh, to jump. So jump is an instant that costs a single blue mana, and target creature is a flying creature until end of turn. So this is kind of just worse flight because it just gives it to a creature for 1 turn. And there really isn't any like incentive to playing instants, right? Like there's no if you play an instant you can draw a card or some bullshit like that. Um if this was made in the era of cantrips, it would have like target creatures flying until end of turn and draw a card on it, and then like maybe it'd be okay depending on what you were trying to do. But this is not a good card. This is a very low value for the price of a card. Even if this was 0 mana, I don't think you would want to play it. Yeah, it can surprise. Like it's not that it can't do anything. There's definitely value to a card. Flying is good, right? Flying is really good. So it can like there's definitely situations you can surprise block. You can yeah, you can just fly over their head to deal lethal. Like if you only need to do it once, there are tons of things you can do with this. It's still low value. Um, yeah, it's still low value. If you counterspell, yeah, you probably would. Because yeah, 'cause you can only run 4 counterspells, right? Yeah, yeah. Cantrips was a pretty good idea overall. Um, jump flying is good. This is a very low value card. I won't say it's ever I won't say it's not useful in certain situations and that you couldn't do stuff with this. It's just a really low value card. Uh, so let's move on to something a little like just as niche actually. With life tap. Now this is the peak of color hate. Life tap is 2 blue mana, and you gain 1 life each time any forest of opponents becomes tapped. So whenever an opponent taps a forest, you gain a life. Uh, which is pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Now, would you call that good? I probably wouldn't. Um, it's an okay sideboard. I think most of the time you want your sideboard to be like, unless you're like, if you're in a very hyper specific meta, stuff like this can potentially be good as sideboard. But if you're like going into something kind of blind, which most people with cards like this were, then I would say like you just want removal for things that you don't normally care about in your sideboard, or things that like, if this is a card I would be more afraid of fucking me over than thinking about how I can fuck someone else with. In which case, like by that logic, yeah, it potentially could be good in a sideboard if the meta called for it. But in a generic thing, I don't think so. Um, yeah, blue life gain. Um, There was another kind of concept with early color hate is color hate cards could do things that the other color was known for just to like fuck on that color, right? Like a great example of that is Red Elemental Blast. Red doesn't normally get counter spells, but it can counter a blue spell just because that's funny as hell. Like there's that kind of design philosophy with some of the color hate cards. And so green is does a lot of life gain. So blue can gain life off of green because it's kind of sapping that, right? Like that's the flavor that they're going for. And I think that's interesting. Yeah, all right. Yeah, you might be right. It could be a good sideboard card. I'm unimpressed with it just because I generally like. Yeah, I mean, if everyone's running birds, you're right. Yeah. Um, if you see, yeah, yeah. By that logic, I think I agree with you. Um, but any situation where you are not like where you're not going to see a bunch of forests, it gets less good. But that I guess that's pretty obvious. Um, but you're right. There are definitely places where it's pretty solid sideboard card for sure. Illustrated by Anson Maddox. The art is interesting. I don't know what any of it has to do with anything that the card's doing, but it's decent. Uh, yeah, Life Tap is pretty good in Chandelar for sure. Um, I don't know. When I play Chandelar, I usually just play like Mishra Factory, Juggernaut, and then all only removal, like Disenchant, Swords to Plowshare, Lightning Bolt, and then that's just how I win the game. Um, but I probably would find this more annoying if I played more green in Chandelar. But yeah, let's talk about Lord of Atlantis because this one's pretty interesting. Lord of Atlantis is a 2/2 for 2 blue mana, so that's already kind of on rate. And all merfolk can play gain Island Walk and +1/+1. while this card is in play. How fascinating. So this is for Merfolk Tribal, which around Revised is starting to be something that like you could legitimately consider building. It's still not like super good, but there's finally enough Merfolk running around. Before that, like before like Revised and stuff like that, this was pretty okay because there was no limit to the number of cards you could run. So your deck could be like 20 Lord of Atlantis and 20 in Merfolk at the Pearl Trident and 20 islands, and like it would be okay. Um, I mean, it wouldn't be an okay deck, but right, like, this is fine. Merfolk aren't great, but it is kind of fun to build uh, decks all around the same creature type, right? So, um, I guess I don't really have anything else to say about it. Giving all the Merfolk plus one and Island Walk, pretty cool, but then you want your opponent to have islands, which means you gotta run something to like, yeah, cards like that do set the groundwork. Um, and I do think that it's really nice that just on the back of this card, it's perfectly fine. Um, yeah, honestly, Merfolk Assassin and Lord of Atlantis make like Merfolk mirror match games really interesting. Um, that's something fun. But even on this face, this card is like a 2/2 for 2 is not terrible value at all. So like even if you the worst case scenario, this is okay, which I think is pretty cool. The art was done by Melissa A. Benson, and the art's phenomenal. I love this. I like this kind of different approach to Merfolk design. I think it's very cool. Um, I guess I don't really have too much else to say about it. It's a solid card. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't, right? Because they're very flavorful, and generally they have good synergies. They kind of, I don't want to say they build themselves, but they kind of build themselves, right? So like, it's a relatively easy concept, but they're just fun, right? So like, they go together well, right? It's a it's a pretty easy thing to like. I like tribal decks, right? They're really fun and interesting and kind of fun to think about and build. The concept is really good because it just gets the card pool to synergize on a different level, which is nice. Magical Hack is kind of interesting. Um, it is an interrupt or an instant these days, and a single blue mana. Change the text of any card being played or already in play by replacing one basic land type with another. For example, you can change Swamp Walk to Planeswalk. I like that they added the the example. Yeah, Fallen Empires had some crazy weak everything. But there's some decent stuff in there too, depending on what level you're playing at. And some of it's really interesting and fun to think about. A lot of it though, like it's all pretty underpowered though, for sure. Um, you can also just like use this to change lands. Um, this is funny. It's definitely not like great, but there are like things you can do with it. Um, this one would have been really funny in Neon Dynasty. Uh, Goblin Grenade is great. Him to Torax in that set though, dude. Um, and the knights, Knight of the Ebon Hand and Knight Order of Liber, those are pretty decent. they're not on the same level as like Invitorak or Goblin Grenade, but there's a few cards that are like actually competitively good in that set, depending on context. Like the context that was the Necropotence meta at the time, those cards got played, so there's some decent. I won't defend Fallen Empires too hard though. The set overall is kind of a train wreck. Magical Hack, very very interesting card. You can do some funny things with it. Yeah, I kind of like him too. A lot of people don't, but uh, him to Torak really good. Him to Tor and High Tide. High Tide's in that set too. Obviously more combo centric and depends on what's going on around it to be good, but there are some good cards in Fallen Empires. Um, Magical Hack, yeah, nobody played this because nobody really understands it and doesn't really understand why you would play it. And for the most part, they're right. Like it does some things. Like you can change something from like Swamp Walk to Planeswalk. Well, why would you do that? Well, because it matters in that situation. Um, but but for the most part, like this is just like sorry, dude. Um, you can always like do it while you're listening if it's that big of a deal. Magical hack. Yeah, I can't even describe like what incredibly niche situations you would use for this. Um, it's pretty not good. Uh, I guess the best case would be to like change a land to another land. You could do that. So like if they had an island, if they had two islands, you could use this and um change it to a swamp, I guess. All right. I'm trying to defend this. It's not working. I'm just gonna move on. Um, oh yeah, it was illustrated by Julie Barrow. The illustration's pretty good. I have no complaints there. But let's talk about a really fun and good Magic card, at least at the time. Uh, so far I've talked about like in the earlier stream we talked about how Sarah Angel and Shivan Dragon are probably like two of the best creatures. Mahamoti Jin is also up there. This is a 5/6 flying creature for 4 and 2 blue. Um, and this is pretty solid, especially back in the day. Um, yeah, Kevin, it's a great use of it of hack. Very funny. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about Mahamoti Jin. It was illustrated by Dan Frazier. The art's fantastic. The card's just good, right? Yeah, it's Serendip Jin without the drawbacks. Exactly. It's about the biggest, cheapest beater you can get without drawbacks. Um, and it was perfectly good, perfectly fine. It trades with, and on top of that, it also like it beats Sengir Vampire or Sarah Angel, which are the flying ones. It trades with Crawworm if it wants to. It can fly over it if it doesn't. And as far as other, the only thing that can maybe kill it is a Shivan that has pumped its power once. So this thing is really strong and matches up against like other things going on in the environment really well. And it's easily cloned. Uh, you can kind of say that about the rest of them. Well, I guess it's easier to clone than the rest because it's in the same color. So that's true. Um, yeah, Mahamoti is a great card. Serendipity. Yeah, yeah. Um, that's the version they use that uses the green background, right? Um, we'll get there because that was funny enough they fixed that in Summer Magic. or Edgar, if you guys know what that is. So the Serendib Ifrit from that. No, you said that right. I screwed that up. I was just clarifying what you said. Yeah. Yeah, the misprint is cool. We'll get there when we get there. Mana Short. Mana Short's interesting, but not particularly strong. This was illustrated by Damon Willick, and the art's really cool. For 2 and a blue, all opponents' lands are tapped, and opponent's mana pool is emptied. Opponent takes no damage from unspent mana. That last bit doesn't matter anymore since mana burn is gone now. But this basically just drains someone's mana pool, and you would like do this on a combo off turn to either bait out their counter spells or their removal before you attempt to do the thing that you're going to do to win the game. And if you're like defending a combo, this is pretty okay. Yeah, semi time walk. You could look at it that way. That's definitely kind of true. Um, Other than situations like though, like specifically just trying to push through something super damaging, this isn't generally good enough. Yeah, it's a cool card in control decks. Oh, hey, you made it, dude. I'm glad. Um, Computer used mana short versus me with life tap to get instant. Okay, yeah, that's really funny. All right, combined with life tap against specifically the guy with forest is. Oh man, I'd be mad. Yeah, yeah, it's good with when it's also good with like stasis, right? So like this is definitely good in certain situations. It's just not generically good. Um, yeah, Winter Orb and stasis. The art is just one of those things that makes you think, how is it related? Yeah, for sure. It's just a rose. I'm okay. I don't know. I'm okay with that. But yeah, how is it related? It really isn't. That's kind of cool in its own way too. Um, but yeah, Mana Short's an interesting card. Anyone else have anything else to add about stuff you can do with this? It is very good with like tap down stuff. And specifically control decks using shit like that. But outside of that, it tends not to be, yeah, that or forcing through a combo against a control deck, right? All right, yeah. I guess maybe it does. The art does have something to do with it. Fading Rose, the exhaustion of the land's flora. Good point. Darth themed. Um, yeah, interesting. But let's move on, I suppose, to Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Uh, this is a Yeah, that's a good point too. Um, yep, yeah, for sure. Good in mirror matches. Also good when you're like trying to combo off right against control. So it's like good as control and it's good against control. Um, but Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. A 1/1 for 1 blue mana. It's um it's a Merfolk, one of the weaker cards. Uh, but it is great. But it's the OG Merfolk, right? What's not to love? Uh, Jeff A. Menges did the art, and it's nice, pretty crazy. The least annoying. and useful blue card ever. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, with Lord of Atlantis, yeah, for sure. Like you could also like do the same thing with like Plague Rats. Well, same but different. Those strategies tend not to be the most dominant, but of all time. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, you can definitely set this up. It's great in like kitchen table stuff, right? Um, and I like Merfolk decks. I think they're funny and stuff like this is a staple. But outside of that, it is just a 1/1 for one blue mana. Um, yeah, Plague Rats would be good in Revised 40. I could see that. Revised 40 is really interesting. It's good you bring that up. I had been meaning to mention it at some point. Um, but Revised 40 is a fun way to play. It's simple, but this together. Yeah, I agree. I'm not bemoaning this card for being simple and like I like the card. It's just objectively not a good card. Um, comparatively, but like I do think it has a positive impact in the environment, right? Like just the synergy between this and Lord Atlantis, like you guys are saying. Um, and yeah, yes, this is a great example of bigger than the box. That's a good way of putting it. Um, yeah, I kind of miss one one drops with no abilities. Savannah Lions goaded. We talked that thing up when we were there. Yeah, power creep has gotten insane. Um, all right, so we can kind of all agree that this is interesting game design, super fun, but like not the best thing you can be doing. Um, and I think we're gonna move on. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad everyone is just as willing to waste their time reading up on old Magic cards as I am. It's a lot funner of an experience than a lot of things you can be doing. Uh, Phantasmal Forces. This is a pretty interesting card. So this is a 4/1, which is pretty crazy. It is a it costs 3 and a blue mana, so it is 4 mana for this. It has flying, and controller must spend blue during upkeep to maintain or phantasmal forces are destroyed. Uh, this is pretty wild. So this is a flying 4/1 for 4 mana, and and that was so good that they also added a cumulative upkeep, or not a cumulative upkeep, an upkeep cost of blue. This is a fantastic sealed deck creature. Like if you get one or two of these, you are fucking great because this thing can hit in flying. It doesn't come down super early. Give Lance to these. Yeah, Lance is great. Definitely throw a Lance on these. Oh yeah, this not even just red burn, right? Like this dies to a hurricane for 2 mana, right? This thing is very glass cannony. But if you get it out, you can just pressure things down. Four power for 4 mana is pretty rare. And this has flying, right? Like yeah, yeah, that's notable too. That yeah, it's one toughness. Everything wipes it out. Fucking dry spell wipes it out. Um, Anything that deals damage of any kind wipes it out. Timmy kicks its ass. Everything just fucking drops the shit. But if they don't have those things, this thing just wins you the game. It's glass cannony for sure. Uh, Super good and sealed. Not It's not really something you can play in constructed. I don't think. Um, was that important? Nope. I thought I had that off. Sorry. The art is banger. I haven't talked about the art. Mark Poole, one of my favorites artists, and art like this is why it's super fantastic. Yeah, exactly. It's a card that demands interaction. It's kind of the blue juggernaut in just that it's something that is powerful and efficient enough that it can come down fast enough that it, like dies to everything, but it forces that everything, right? You have to like dies to everything, but if you just ignore this, you're dead in 5 turns. Um, Obviously this isn't quite as good as Juggernaut. Juggernaut is a 5/3. Um, the flying does kind of make up for that though. So it's around the same value. Um, it's just like a turn slower, which is a lot. It's still a very, very good card. Oh yeah, Unstable Mutation would be really interesting with this card. I never considered that. I'm not a huge Unstable Mutation fan. I know it's decent, and it was super popular back in the day, but I don't know what it is about it. Uh, I guess it's probably just that usually when I'm doing that kind of stuff, I'm not in blue. Uh, but obviously, if you're running Phantasmal Forces, yeah, that's really cool. That's a good idea. Um, I don't think there's really anything else to say about it. The upkeep cost is a little bit annoying, but it is kind of worth it. Then we have Phantasmal Terrain. Unstable Mutation with Berserk. Yeah, it's great for stuff like that for sure. Um, Generally, I guess with like giant growth, I don't really see the need, but it's definitely good with stuff like that. Unstable and Ornithopter. Yeah, I mean, people were a big fan of Ornithopter and every enchantment they could get their hands on, right? Unstable Mutation is a pretty solid one to use. Yeah, Phantasmal Terrain is specifically this is a card that is like very like underappreciated, I think is the word I'm trying to go with. It is complicated. Well, let's talk about what it does first. It's 2 blue mana. It's an enchant land. Target land changes to any basic land type of caster's choice. Land type is set when cast and may not be further altered by this card. So this basically can turn a land into a basic land. I don't think it sucks. I don't know that it's like this is not like it depends on where you're drawing the line at suck, right? Like this is lower than some things, but yeah, see, my chat's going crazy. Some people are like, "Wow, this is sucks." Other people are like, "Wow, this is unusable." Phantasmal Terrains makes banding lands actually usable. Yeah, it's definitely weaker, but like there is definitely uses for this because you change um if someone is you change a land to a basic land, right? Like you can use this on a Library of Alexandria and make it into a color that they're not playing. Or you could turn it into an island for your island fish so that he doesn't die if you wanted to use um Any good targets? Well, yeah, this was way less good in just like alpha. Although we're in revised, so those cards are technically out, but nobody has them anymore. So, but there are good land cards by the time revised is out. Well, yeah, you can't just look at it as like some color negation, right? It has to be like almost land destruction, right? So it's like good against stuff like Mishra's Factory against a control deck whose like only win condition is their Mishra's Factory, right? It's pretty solid then. Not as good as Evil Presence, but it's pretty solid then. Um, but like if they're a two color deck and you take one of their green sources when they're green red, yeah, it's not gonna really do anything then. But if you're running Island Walk stuff on top of it, then it's pretty solid. If you're yeah, there are places. It definitely is very meta dependent on this being good. But I do think that there are definitely places where this is really good. Yeah, yeah, they yeah, okay. I don't. We'll have to double check when we get there. I don't think strip mine was put into the core sets until fourth. Yeah. Oh yeah, fourth. The comment said it too. Um, debuffing Kurt Ape. Yeah, yeah. You can. That'll teach him. Yes. However, even at this point, Blue did kind of struggle with land destruction. Now there's an argument for like I said, Evil Presence is pretty good for similar things. Like there's an argument that you already have Sinkhole, so you kind of don't need that and Strip Mine. But blue, if you were mostly blue, and so then you were like using some of this island walk bullshit, Phantasmal Terrain very much drops in its ability the more colors you add to your play. Um, yeah. Um, I mean, I guess I'm not willing to die on the hill that Phantasmal Terrain is a great card, but I think in certain situations it's playable. Does anyone else have anything fun to add about it? The art's really good. It was illustrated by Damon Willick. Um, yeah, yeah. All right, let's move on to another funny one. This is Phantom Monster. This is a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. Uh, I called this funny, but it's not. I think I was thinking of something else. This is a vanilla. The art was by Jesper Meerfors, and it has flying, which is pretty good. There's nothing really else to say about it. It's certainly not great. 4 mana with for a 3/3 flyer. Still like dies to lightning bolt. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about this one. Uh, we'll just scoot along, shall we? Uh, yeah, you preferred over the 4/1 flyer with an upkeep cost. I could see that. Um, I think they both. I think the problem for me is they both like 3 is not so high that it doesn't die to lightning bolt. So they both kind of die to all the same things. I don't know. I could see the choice, but Yeah, pirate ship. It's another pinger, 4 and blue for a 4/3, and you can tap it to deal damage to any target. And it cannot attack unless opponent has islands in play, though controller may still use the special ability, so you can still ping. Pirate ship is destroyed immediately if at any time controller has no islands in play. Yeah, it should be better. Like, this is 5 mana for a pinger that's a 4/3. And it has, like, the downside of needing islands to be in play to do anything. Um, yeah, that is true. But also, like, you also have to remember that with mana costs, costing 2 generic less is actually insanely better, right? Because it comes down earlier. It's and the value proportion is different because pirate ship is kind of worse because it is a 4/3, so you either ping or attack, whereas with prodigal there's not really a difference between pinging or attacking, so you would pretty much just always ping and have the advantage of going to any target whenever you wanted, whereas the pirate ship has to make a choice between either, blowing up the birds of paradise or swinging in for 4. um Whereas Prodigal doesn't have to deal with that because the ping does the same damage, so it doesn't have that kind of value tugging in different ways. Um, Not that that's much of a downside. Um, Pirate Ship is good. It's a pretty good card. It's not a great card. Um, doesn't have evasion, requires islands. Yeah, yeah, Pirate Ship could do that. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Those are all really good points. The art is cool. The whole card is really cool. Like, it's a cool card. It is a card that sucks though. Um, like Timmy is way better just because it costs 2 mana less to do the same thing, right? Like, yeah, you don't get the 4/3 on top of it. Yeah, yeah, you're spending. Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily a waste of resources, but well, yes, it is because you're dividing the resources either way instead of getting all of the advantage. So yeah, it is a waste of resources, especially compared to Prodigal, who's the one that comes down cheaper. This is definitely a way worse card than Prodigal Sorcerer. Yeah, yeah, there are a lot of cards that I've looked at and been like, man, this is so cool. I wish this was good. And this is another one. Definitely looks like it should be cool. I will say it's not like the worst shit ever. Just the pinging ability is really valuable. It sucks having it on something you spend so much fucking mana on and on something that you'd rather swing in and attack with. But, unless they have a fucking island, that's not happening. Um, the art's really cool. It was done by Tom Warnerstrom. Let's um let's move on, shall we? All right. So next is Power Leak. Power Leak is an enchantment, and you can enchant an enchantment with it, and target enchantment costs 2 extra mana during the upkeep phase of each of its controller's turns. If target enchantment's controller cannot or will not pay this extra mana, Power Leak does 1 damage to him or her for each unpaid mana. Did you catch all that? At the beginning of the upkeep of Enchanted Enchantments controller, that player may pay any amount of mana. This aura deals 2 damage to that player. Prevent X of that damage, where X is the amount of mana that player paid this way. Fun stuff. So you can either pay 2 and take 0 damage, pay 1 and take a damage, pay 0, take 2 damage. Yeah, this is one of those annoying cards. Full disclosure, I like whenever I see this card, I'm like, oh, sweet, power sync. And then I like will play my game assuming I have a power sync until I like go to realize, oh, this is power league, not power sync. And then I'm really fucking frustrated. I'm not a big fan of this card. You're a sucker for these cards. That's interesting. Cool to see someone who enjoys stuff like this. Uh, they are pretty funny. Um, they're so good at being frustrating. See, that's interesting because I really, really love Psychic Venom. Um, I think Psychic Venom's a fantastic card, but Power League kind of annoys me. It's I think it's just that it has to hit a enchantment, which yeah, I agree. Psychic Venom is underrated. Everyone runs it, or I mean, everyone runs lands. So it's always gonna have a target. Power League might not have a target all game, and if it doesn't, it's just a dead card. Um, I I don't like it. It's not terrible, right? Like as it can be frustrating, and it either slows down your opponent or slowly burns them. And blue does have some like slow burn shit, like with pingers, so you could definitely counter burn just with blue back in the day. Um, but yeah, I'm not a particular fan of this one. I don't hate it. Um, yeah, I don't know enough of these kind of cards to say for certain if Psychic Venom is the only good one, but it's the like the best one that I think of. Like I play old school burn decks with Psychic Venom. Wanderlust is pretty decent too. It costs an extra mana though, which is a huge difference. Um, yeah, the art was done by Drew Tucker. I don't mind it. In fact, this is kind of one of my like I guess looking at it from the aspect of does this card art have anything to do with the card? No, not really. But if you look at the art away from the card Power League, I kind of like the art. Drew Tucker's style is weird. I don't hate it. I also he's not one of my favorite artists, but a lot of people feel a lot of ways about Drew Tucker's work. But yeah, the art is very has nothing to do with the what the card's doing, like a person, right? So yeah, yeah, kind of off point. I guess that's really all I have to say about Power League. Let's talk about Power Sync. I like that card better. Power Sync is an interrupt or an instant that costs X and a blue mana. Uh, Target spell is countered unless its caster spends X more mana. Caster of target spell must draw and spend all available mana from lands and mana pool until X is spent. He or she may also spend mana from other sources if desired. If this is not enough mana, target spell will still be countered. Yeah, going back to Drew Tucker, I agree with you. His hits are hits, and but a lot of it is kind of just bland and confusing. Yeah, this one was done by Richard Thomas, and this art is banger. This card is fantastic. It's a relatively cheap counter spell. When you say the Ice Age printing, do you just mean the art or the wording? Because I don't remember either of them off the top of my head. Oh, that the wording is still pretty cool. Yeah, that art is really nice. That's really cool. Cheese nachos. Yeah, no kidding. I don't know. I like the art for Power Sync because the guy just looks kind of like real fucking annoyed, which is kind of how I look when someone casts a Power Sync on me. Um, is the power cutting? Or the audio cutting? Um, it might be just I have some level of noise reduction. Um, that might be cutting out some of my stuff when I'm peaking. If it becomes a problem, let me know. But yeah, power sync. Okay, cool. Thank you guys. Uh, I don't know what else to say about power sync. It's a counter spell, right? It's a good counter spell too because it forces them to interact with it, and it is a counter spell that only requires one blue mana. So you can play this in really like 5 color decks if you want to. Sorry, Carlos. I hope you're not missing anything too important and it's not like ruining the experience for you. Oh, is there it's audio syncing issues too, possibly? Okay. My settings might need to be changed in the future. I'm still pretty new at this whole streaming thing, so some of it I screw up. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there's okay. Audio is a little bit out of sync. Probably on YouTube's end. Let me look at my stream health here. Okay, apparently my bitrate is higher than the recommended amount. I can't really change that during the stream. Uh, okay. Yeah, everything looks good on my end. Still only halfway understand how any of these analytical tools work. Ba 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 ba. Spell Blast and this are great. Yeah, yeah, both of them are great, right? They both also kind of attack. Uh, cool, cool. Glad it's working for everyone. They also both kind of attack different angles, right? Like, Power Sync is something you want to cast on high CMC spells because they won't have much mana left. Whereas Spell Blast, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you want to cast on low CMC stuff because it'll cost you less mana. Um, so they complement each other really well when you have access to both of them, and they both only cost a single blue. And yeah, I would say depending on what what you're playing in, they are still semi-viable. Perfectly fine in like Commander and stuff. Um, yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say for Power Sync. I really like it, but I like counter spells. So let's talk about the boy. Look at him. There he is. Prodigal Sorcerer. He's 2 and a blue. He's a 1/1, and you can tap him to like totally kill a Birds of Paradise or a Llanowar Elves or uh Royal Assassin. I think Royal Assassin's a 1/1. You can fuck up a lot of shit with this. Prodigal Sorcerer is pretty sweet. I like this card. It was illustrated by Douglas Schuler, and it's iconic. It's fancy. It's Tim. There are some who call him Tim. Yeah. Anyone, if there's anyone for some reason who doesn't understand why people call this card Tim or Timmy, is because of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There's a scene where they meet a sorcerer and he goes, "My name is Tim," something to that effect, and that's what this is based off of. It is such an iconic card. It's yeah, Royal Assassin is a 1/1. Yeah, yeah, this thing can fuck up a Royal Assassin. Of course, if the Royal Assassin isn't Sorcerer Queen is a 0/2. Okay. Um, yeah. Yeah, this is just a pinger. It's great. It can blow up 1/1s. It can ping damage, like constant pressure to the face. It's pretty versatile. Yeah. Yeah, if you have two Timmies out, it's really hard. Like, if you have three Timmies out, I don't know that if you're a creature deck, you can actually come back from that. Unless you, like, Wrath of God or something. Um, it does wreck a ball lightning. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you just can't cast into a Prodigal Sorcerer, right? Like, you can't cast a Birds of Paradise into this. It's just dead. You can't cast a Land of War Elves, Royal Assassin, Ball Lightning, Banala Shiro. I swear I just turned the sound off. Why are you like this? Stuff. Okay. Sorry about that, if that noise came through. Yeah, Prodigal's great. He's pretty versatile. He's just damage and removal. Yeah, you also can't cast your own Tim into an enemy's Tim. Yeah, and Phantom Forces. You're right. It also wrecks Phantom Forces. Um, yeah, you can't cast your own Tim into a Tim for sure. It, it's surprising. Like the first time I saw something like this, I was like, "This is pretty innocuous." But when you start playing like with and against it, this thing is fucking annoying. This is a really fucking annoying card to be looking at. Um, it's so good. Does it cost the right amount? It depends on what you mean. Like for back in the day, maybe you could argue this should cost 4 mana, but I don't think so. I think it's fine. I think 2 mana for something like this would be fine now. I don't know if it would even be good anymore. Um, but I think 3 mana is probably fair. Thrall token's not safe either. Yeah, but I don't know that like you probably got better stuff to be doing. Yeah, yeah. Pirate Shim can counter. You can cast your pirate ship into a Tim and just be like, "Fuck you." That's something you can do. Yeah, I think a lot of people just kind of assume something like this is kind of bad to first power because you're like, "Oh, but I could just swing in and do 1 damage. It doesn't do anything different." This is something that like you actually have to be put into the situations. Um, like there's a lot of cards like that are just sneaky good. Like Mishra's Factory is another one of those that like the first time I saw a land that could turn into a creature, I was like, who fucking cares? But then I got my ass kicked by one, right? The Hive. That'll be a fun one to talk about. Who doesn't want to spend 10 mana on a 1/1 and then 5 mana on 1/1s after that? But it's you could definitely do stuff with it. Oh, did I talk about the art? I don't know that I talked about the art. Douglas Schuler did this. It's really good. But probably Timmy should do something else. Yeah, they don't do blue pingers anymore, which I personally think is a shame. I think it's fine that blue gets a little bit of damage. I don't know that that's necessarily a problem. Um, but color pie philosophy is all just opinion anyway, and how you feel it should be represented. Let's talk about another really good card. Another potentially underrated card that people might not think is as good as it actually is. Psychic Venom. Psychic Venom is really brutal. Um, for 1 and a blue, it's an enchant land. You play it on a land, and whenever target land becomes tapped, Psychic Venom does 2 damage to target land's controller. This is sorry, I've been talking too much. This is pretty good. This is a card that's better if you're playing against multicolor decks or decks that are running things like Library of Alexandria and just stronger lands and like uh Mishra's Factory, which I mentioned earlier, right? This doesn't do as well against like a basic land or even a dual land in like two, maybe three color deck. Because as long as they don't necessarily need that access, they can just go down a land and just do their best not to tap it. So it has to be on a land that they kind of have to, that you're kind of forced to tap. Um, but even if the best this does is slow them down by like preventing them from tapping a land because they don't want to take the damage, this is very good. Um, it it's especially brutal, especially if it comes down on turn two. Turn one or turn two, Psychic Venom is just kind of brutal because you either have to take some damage to like mitigate the issue, or you're just slowed down by a turn, which is the worst thing to do in the early turns. It's like turn two is like twice as powerful as turn one, right? And then turn three is like three times as powerful as turn one, right? But that number doesn't go up by as big of a rate the later on you go. So your early turns are a lot more impactful for a lot of reasons. Neutralize a land and still be good. Three cost ones, I, I think three cost is fine. Like I think Stone Rain and Icy Ice Storm. I think those are perfectly fine casted. They kind of I don't think they do this anymore, but they used to basically treat a generic mana as like half the value of a full color, right? So like if a card was one and two blue, you could safely assume that you could also make that card two of the same color. And they like show that with like Sinkhole costing black to destroy a land, whereas Ice Storm and Stone Range cost two and a color of their type to destroy it. Um, It also does go with Icy Mini. I mean, like that's kind of a side value, right? Like that's a you'd be running both of these in a control style deck where you're trying to like slow down what they were doing. And that's just kind of like if these both happen to be in your deck, cool. Obviously, it's not something you'd build around, but it is funny and pretty good. Spreading multiple of those at different lands either slows down your opponent so much it kills them pretty quickly. Yeah, exactly. Putting them on a couple of different lands, especially hitting the because every game's different too. Because if you're like a four or three color deck, you might really need two blue mana at some point, and if one of them gets Psychic Venomed, like you're probably gonna have to tap it at some point. Um, so Psychic Venom is actually really good. I have like in card pools with very powerful cards, I have seen this do very brutal things, be very fucking annoying. It's certainly not like the most powerful thing ever. The old tapping their City of Brass. That's a slow burn, but it'll get them. Yeah, but the Ice Age villain version, you're talking about Pillage, right? That also blows up an artifact, I think it is. Um, I think that's fine because you increase the versatility of the spell, right? So if the land destruction spell only blows up a land, one and two generic is pretty okay. But now that it might blow up a land or it might blow up an artifact, now it's got to cost more or cost two colored to make it. You have to be more dedicated to those colors to play it or to make it harder to cast. Um, yeah. Um, Dolmor Karst and the other one. I guess I don't remember Ice Age that well. I haven't looked over it again I haven't looked over it in a couple months. So I haven't gotten ready to do that one yet. Um, I'm just gonna have to take. Yeah, Stone Rain was reprinted so much. I mean, Strip Mine also made it into like fifth or sixth edition. They like just kept printing it, like get it into standard. It was legal for way longer than you'd expect. Um, it took them a while to like get out of land destruction, but I mean, I like land destruction, so I think the game is more fun when Stone Rain's in it. Um, yeah, I guess we should talk about the art of this. We haven't talked about the art. Um, this was illustrated by Brian Schnotty, and it's pretty fucking funny. The eyes in the back are really cool. Um, yeah, I guess I don't have much to say about the art though. Let's I suppose move on, shall we? Yeah, turn City Land into a shock land. It is definitely a bit out there on the art. Next we have Reconstruction, which is a sorcery for a single blue mana, and you can bring one artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So this is just the blue raised dead. The art was done by Anson Maddox, and it's pretty sweet. This was originally in Antiquities and then got put into Revised as a reprint, which is pretty cool. Um, I would say the cards maybe okay if you rely heavily on a specific couple of artifacts, but you're really unlikely to be able to find room to play this. But it is super efficient for what it does. It can be really high value in the right decks. Thermocast in the black version, I say, is destroy the land for one generic and two green black. Thermocast. One generic. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Pillages was that was Alliances, wasn't it? I was okay. You're right. I was thinking of the wrong. Um, yeah, it's hard to complain for one blue, right? Like if this is an effect that you want or need or like foresee yourself requiring, this is pretty good. The flavor text is really rich, and yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, can't complain for one blue. Yep, right. Um, it is a cool card. This is definitely a cool card. Ice Quick was the black one. Okay, good to know. Pillage is a great card. I love Pillage. I was just confusing. I thought that was Ice Age. The gold cards in Ice Age were surprisingly good. I vaguely remember that. I haven't like deep dived into Ice Age in a while because when I do deep dive, I make a video about it, and I haven't gotten there yet. Combos well with Black Lotus. Yeah, yes, it's pretty decent with Black Lotus. Not as good as like Argivian archaeologist from Antiquities. That combos pretty nicely with Black Lotus. If you want a free extra one white mana every turn. There really isn't much to say about Reconstruction, I suppose. Art was done by Anson Maddox. The art is pretty interesting. It's an effective and good card. It's nothing like major. You'd have to want the effect for it to be good. It's hard to fit into decks, but it is pretty good when you can. All right, next we have Sea Serpent. A big wet snake. Sea Serpent is a 5/5 that costs 5 and a blue mana, and it cannot attack unless your opponent has islands in play, and it is buried immediately if you don't have any islands. Uh, it's pretty good with phantasmal terrain, right? Um, yeah, it is. It's Sea Serpent. It's a common. It's it's not great. The art is fantastic. I really like this art. It was done by Jeff A. Menges, and I just think it does a great job of captivating like the weather, how cold that probably is. I just think the art's really cool. Yeah, Crawlworm is actually a pretty solid card at the time. This is not. Um, I mean, if your opponent's in blue, it's pretty funny. This is, and it's not even like super mana efficient. So like, if this was like 4 mana, or you got even 3 mana, this thing would be insane. Um, no, no, he does not look like he's in a hurry. What can you do at this point, though, right? It's hard to say. Yeah, this is my life. Yeah. How are you gonna fight it? Uh, there's really nothing. Like the art's good. The card's kind of interesting. Flavor wise, it's interesting, right? Like it's a sea serpent. Of course, they needed islands or the water around the island. Technically, it makes sense. But it's not good. Um, yeah. Let's move on to an interesting one to talk about. So this is the blue card Serendib Efreet. Costs 2 and a blue. It's a 3/4 with flying, and it does 1 damage to you during your upkeep. So not sure exactly how this happened, but this is the artwork for If Bif Efreet from Arabian Nights. The text and the text, the art, the power and toughness, everything is correct on the card except the frame and the art are from If Bif Efreet, instead of Serendib Efreet. That's really interesting. Yeah, the card's like cracked. A three, it's because it's a 3/4 flyer for 3. Like the rate on this is actually insane. Um, and it does a damage to you during your upkeep, just like Juzam Jin does. But like that's totally worth the trade. This is a very powerful card. It dodges Lightning Bolt too, which is kind of insane. Looks better in green. Interesting. I actually I like the OG art too. I prefer the Serendib Ifrit art. Uh, this art is interesting because this art was also is also edited on a computer. I think this was like actually a photo that he just like modified because they ran into art problems again. It didn't matter only like so yeah. Yeah, definitely the Arabian Nights did not get printed enough. It's a shame they never reprinted that because there are some cards that would be really fun to play with that a lot of people don't get to see. Luckily, it doesn't matter these days because you can just go out and fucking print them yourself. But didn't matter. But that's not how it was back in the day, right? But yeah, Serendipity Read is a great card. Um, I don't know if I have anything else to say on this. No, I think that's it. It's a very good card. It's a very good card. But let's move on. To Siren's Call. So Siren's Call is an instant for 1 blue. All of your opponent's creatures that can attack must do so. Any non-wall creatures that cannot attack are killed at end of turn. Can be played only during opponent's turn, before opponent's attack. Creatures summoned this turn are unaffected by Siren's Call. No. Well, yeah, early on they were counterfeits, right? Like, it was kind of different. Um, I was just saying that that's not really an issue today. It definitely was an issue back then, just not being able to have access to certain cards. Um, but yeah, Siren's Call. Yeah, makes creatures attack. This can be really interesting, can be really powerful. This has just waffle stomped the crap out of me, specifically in Chandalar, a couple of times. So if you're like playing in Chandalar, beware of this card. I do not think this card is good in like constructed. But it can definitely, in certain situations, be really brutal. The art was done by Anson Maddox. Probably not my favorite Anson work at all, but it's okay. It's pretty decent. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say to Siren's Call. It's fine. Yeah, it's an interesting effect. Good with Sengir Vampire and Fungus. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty. Um, yeah, they do this on a couple of things. Uh, yeah, Maddox. I always like Maddox color use, but this is definitely a nice one too. With how yeah, you can tell because it's the way that it is, right? Um, only before opponent's attacks are unaffected. Yeah, it's basically just they got to attack, right? So if you make them attack into your wall, very good. There really isn't much else to say about it though. It's definitely really interesting. Let's uh let's keep on rocking, shall we? Alright, this might be one of the most bluest cards of all time. Sleight of Mind is an instant that costs a single blue mana. Change the text of any card being played or already in play by replacing one color word with another. For example, you can change counters red spells to counters black spells. Sleight of Mind cannot change mana symbols. So very similar to Magical Hack, except this changes any word that's a color into a different color. Uh, this is pretty funny for some reasons. You can use it to counter a red elemental blast by changing the red elemental blast to say black spell instead of blue spell, right? Which is kind of funny. It certainly makes you feel really smug if you pull it off. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a good card, but you do feel like a pretentious asshole if you actually manage to get somebody with this. It's really niche. It's really niche. It's really fucking funny though. I kind of want the card to be good, but it's not. The art's fantastic though. Mark Poole did this one, and I like Poole's work. Yeah, not good enough. It is not a good card. It is one of the cards of all time though. Definitely true. It's so fucking funny. It's one of those cards that you look at and you're like, can I do something with this? And you consider some stuff and you try it, and it maybe works once. And it's really funny, but not good. Uh, that's really all I have to say about Sleight of Mind. So let's move on to Spell Blast, because this card is interesting. If you like counter spells. If you don't like counter spells, this card is not interesting. Uh, yeah. Spell Blast. This is an interrupt or instant. Costs X and a blue, and target spell is countered. X is the casting cost of the target spell. So, if somebody casts a Black Lotus, you can pay 1 blue and Spell Blast it. If someone casts a Lightning Bolt, you can play 1 blue and 1 generic and counter it. Very, very good against early spells that are very impactful and powerful. And then as the scale goes up, yeah. Yeah, Spell Blast is probably the worst. Um, like, I would say Power Sync is going to be more useful in more situations than Spell Blast is. Uh, just because of the nature of how things are. But Spell Blast can be pretty useful. It's definitely like if I'm running Power Sync and Spell Blast, I tend to cut copies of Spell Blast before I cut Power Sync. Um, it definitely is the like least useful one, but it can do some pretty good stuff in the right circumstances. But otherwise, it's just a counter spell. The art's pretty funny. Um, yeah, the art's pretty funny. Interesting details. Um, oh look, you can even see his butt crack. Very interesting details. This was illustrated by Brian Schnotty, and there really isn't much else to say about it. It's cool. It's niche. It's super niche for a counter spell. Yeah, we already did talk about Power Sync. Power Sync's really good. Spell Blast isn't necessarily terrible, but it's more niche. Yeah, it is like a DBZ scene. What's not like a DB? Well, actually, you know what? I said that, but with the dog and the pointy-headed guy bending his head, this is kind of like a DBZ scene too. If you, well, not DBZ, but the thing with Beerus in it. Stasis. That was all nonsense. Don't worry about that. Stasis is really good. Stasis is an enchantment, costs 1 and a blue. Players do not get an untapped phase. Pay blue during your upkeep or Stasis is destroyed. Cards still do not untap until the next untap phase. Yeah, Stasis is really good. Stasis is super good in a lot of ways. Um, it's a really annoying card. People fucking hate this card. It's like top 3, top 2 on the salt score of EDH rec for commander players. They do not want you fucking slinging a stasis. Yeah, exactly. Stasis fun. Yeah, the art is fantastic. The art was done by Faye Jones, who is I think it's Richard Garfield's like aunt, I believe, is the relation. But she's like an actual artist that like is in museums and has been like acknowledged by the art community and won awards and shit. I don't know, like a contemporary artist. Uh, and she created a painting. Okay, so the comment is saying friend question mark. I thought it was like his aunt, but I could be wrong. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of Stasis too. The art is really good. It's very interesting. You can do some funny things with it, like you can have a stasis and cast a time vault and skip a turn to skip having to pay to keep the stasis up one extra turn. And obviously, you do that near the end of the stasis after your opponent was like had tapped out for a few turns. And so then they couldn't really fucking do anything with the turn. I think you're right. Okay. Yeah, it might be. I don't know. The point is that Richard was close to the artist for some reason, and so she agreed to paint it. But yeah, she is an accomplished, very talented artist. So this piece is very cool. I like it. I think it's fantastic. I think the card is fun too. I like that it has such a unique art on it because you don't see this style on any other Magic card because Faye only did one. Um, and I think that's fantastic. Uh, the card is also fantastically annoying to play under. All right, do we get that started? It seems like we're pretty sure. All right. Yeah, Stasis, great card. I have no complaints. Days foil and Tavant is so messed up. Yeah, for sure. It's also brutal with shit like Kesmet. Um, Stasis is rude. Stasis is pretty fucking rude. Good card though. I would definitely play it, and I do play it. Let's move on though. I mean, there really isn't too much else to say about it. It is very interesting, powerful, unfun, the funnest thing. Um, yeah, and the art's phenomenal. I think that's pretty much all there is to say. Steel artifact. Steel artifact. Costs 2 and 2 blue mana, and you control target artifact. One of the few cards that really needed commu I mean, it kind of has cumulative upkeep, right? Like, it doesn't, but your stuff doesn't untap, so it gets harder and harder to pay it. Maybe it would be better with cumulative, but I think it's fine. I personally think it's fine with the upkeep that it has. But I'm a known not stacks enthusiast, but stacks tolerator. So take that how you will, right? Like I think Trinisphere and stuff like that is fine. Not necessarily the funnest thing to play under all the time, but once in a while is okay. Steel artifact. Yeah, so you pay for and you control enchanted artifact. It's control magic, but for their artifacts. So you can use this to take a juggernaut and then hit them in the face with a juggernaut and then win the game. Um, this is only as good as its target. This is probably something that'd be a pretty decent sideboard piece if there was in your meta like something that used really good artifacts. Um, but this is like less consistent than control magic, which is also only really good against creature decks, which generally are not the strongest decks out there. Um, so again, depending on what you're playing against and playing with, this could be really good, but it is fairly niche. Um, the art was done by Amy Weber, and it's kind of like an Indiana Jones scene going on there, which makes sense. The art's okay. Um, I don't really have anything else to say about it though. So unless anyone has anything else to add about Steel Artifact, I don't think anyone's like ever really played this, to be honest. Um, yeah, copy Artifact's better for a few reasons. The most obvious one being that it is half the mana value, right? Yeah, copy Artifact is way better. I still love that these cards had a uh, clause written specifically. Yeah, well, Anti was going around, right? So they kind of had to. They kind of walked themselves into that corner. But yeah, copy artifacts is way better. Um, and also another reason that makes copy artifact better is like so you can run copy artifact. You could run 4 copy artifacts and 4 juggernauts, and then maybe have 8 juggernauts, right? And half of those you'd only have to pay 2 for. Whereas Steel Artifact, your opponent has to run an artifact worth stealing, and you have to pay 4 mana for it. So Copy Artifact is a way better card. Oh man. Um. Yeah, Copy Artifact is pretty strong. Obviously, it depends entirely on the artifacts and the environment, but in this environment, it's pretty strong. I think it's. I keep talking about like using it on like a Juggernaut or like something like that because I do think it's probably one of the better use cases of it, other than stuff like Icy Manipulator and you know, I guess it'd be pretty okay on a Mox too if you were hard up for that color of mana. Uh, let's talk about Thought-Lace. So Thought-Lace is an interrupt that costs a blue, and it changes the color of one card either being played or already in play to blue. Cost to cast, tap, maintain, or use a special ability of target card remains entirely unchanged. Uh, Thought-Lace is interesting. It's not good. It's really funny with Red Elemental Blast for the 1/2 fucking 2 mana, 2 cards to remove any permanent, which is pretty funny. Uh, but other than that, it's like not good. There are use cases of stuff like this, but really you're just Laces the worst cycle. Yeah, probably. Like if they at least like cantripped or something, they would be maybe okay. Or if they like made more things that like would interact with this kind of play. But yeah, Mark Poole has a lot of great art. I like this one too. Um, yeah, Thought Lace is like interesting. What do you do with it? Like you turn something blue, red elemental blast it, get a good chuckle, and then probably lose the game. Um, yeah. Uh, these cards are almost an enigma with how like I don't know, maybe it's different for everybody, but the first time I read like cards that just change the color of a card, I was so compelled with like why I would even want to do that. A Guardians collectible card game card. Crazy. How's Markpool doing? That's really awesome. Yeah, and I can't imagine people would be often to bring him stuff like that. That's crazy. Uh, blah, blah, blah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah. Basically, the color change cards just confused me. They'd be like, "Well, what can I do with this?" And then I looked a little further and never found anything. It's interesting, but they really aren't worth the card. So let us move on. Sleight of Mine is more useful than the laces, and even that's not playing. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, yeah. They both have like really niche applications, but it's just like never worth it. And even if it was sometimes worth it, the consistency to like do the thing to make it worth it wouldn't be there with the amount of like jerking around you gotta do, right? Uh, all right. Unstable mutation. Unstable mutation is pretty interesting. This is an aura or an enchant creature, and target creature gets +3/+3 for a single blue mana. During the upkeep phase of yeah. I'm sorry guys. I'm gonna be right back. I need more water. My throat is dry as fuck. Ugh. No, this is incredibly rare for blue to get pumped. So, Unstable Mutation actually came out in Arabian Nights, the first ever expansion of the game. Um, so this was kind of an experiment, I think, trying to figure out a way to give blue pump, and then they made this card. And this card is actually pretty popular, especially back in the day. It does feel like a more black effect, yeah. The card is outside of the color pie, but it was made really early into the game when they were still trying to figure things out. And flavorfully, it does kind of feel blue. Yeah, and you can get around regeneration with this if you have the time. Um, Mutation was very common back in the day. A lot of people really like it. It is pretty strong. People would like use this with like Berserk and this definitely feels really Simic. You could definitely see this in a Simic type thing. Um, what else? The card's decent, right? Like it's +3, then +2, then +1. Power creep in Arabian Nights was insane compared to Alpha, just saying. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess. Not really. Like Alpha is just as bad. Like Contract from Below is probably the strongest card ever made. Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus are absolutely insane. The Moxen, Wheel of Fortune, and Time Twister. Like there's a bunch of like Arabian Nights has powerful cards. Absolutely 100% sure. Um, but Alpha does too. I think it's from there. It's when they kind of start to drop in until they start picking up again. Uh, Unstable Mutation was pretty popular. It's very fun for people to use with like Ornithopter and uh, green creatures, as the chatter is saying. This would part of why this was paired with green creatures is that because it's super funny and good with like Berserk and Giant Growth. So you Unstable Mutant something with, and then Giant Growth it, and then Berserk it, and you can like one shot them. Yeah, it's really good in Chandelar for sure. It's definitely a solid card. Like it saw play. Um, the art's pretty interesting too. This was done by Douglas Schuler, and it's a pretty good card. Um, I don't know that I have too much else to say about it, right? It's pretty obvious that it's like a kind of an aggressive card, something that it's low to the ground. You play it early, deal a lot of damage early on. But let's move on. To the blue Swords to Plowshare. This is unsummon. You can pay a blue mana to return target creature to its owner's hand. Sprites, Flying Man. Yep. Yeah, that's basically the deck I was thinking of. Um, enchantments on target creature are discarded. So this bounces a creature for 1 blue mana. This can be pretty good, honestly. Like it's a tempo play, right? And you can also put something back into their hand and then counter it when they try to cast it again, which is pretty funny. But this is really, really good against stuff that they cheat out or, yeah, like if they cheated out a Shivan Dragon with an Animate Dead, you could unsummon it. They'd put the Shivan Dragon back in their hand, unless they had stole it from you. Then it'd go back to your hand. So you could do stuff like that with it. Obviously, it's not as good as like Terror, which kills something, or Swords to Plowshare, which just for 1 white mana removes any creature from the game, making it no longer a problem. But this is still decent. It's super efficient. Unsummon is such a classic. I still like it better than Boomerang. Is that because you don't like getting your lands like bounced on turn 2? Because Boomerang is pretty brutal. Unsummon is nice because it only costs a single mana. Boomerang can hit any permanent for 2 blue. Speaking of Chandelure, I was able to download it and get it running as the issue. Had 1 crasher. Yeah, I read on the internet all the time that Chandelure messes with their shit, and like I believe them, but I got really lucky. I've had 0 issues with it. I downloaded it and it just played. It's been no problem. I have like maybe somewhere between 40 and 60 hours. And I have had like 3 or 4 crashes. Unsummon and Unlimited is really fun, to be honest. I think it's a perfectly fine card. It's definitely not something that's super flashy or like super strong, but I like when the game is around the power level that Unsummon can shine, personally. The double blue mana makes Boomerang much harder to cast, but um, but it is a little bit more powerful. Well, I guess it's only more powerful if you use it for things that aren't creatures. But Boomerang does have more versatility because it can hit anything. But if you're worried about creatures, Unsummon is just kind of better. But yeah, they print this all the time though, I think. It still shows up. Yeah, it's Unsummoned. There really isn't too much else that I have to say about. Oh, it was illustrated by Douglas Schuler. I completely forgot to talk about the art here. Unsummoned was illustrated by Douglas Schuler, and the art is classic. It's really good. So yeah, let us move on. Yeah, it is removal that feels very blue. I like that about it too. That's definitely one of the cooler parts about it. There was a power crept one that also made the opponent lose 1 life. Oh, that's interesting. It's a shame when Unsummon has to be power crept, though. Next, we have Vesuvan Doppelganger. So this is a shapeshifter. Costs 3 and 2 blue mana. Upon summoning, Doppelganger acquires all characteristics except color of any one creature in play on either side. Any creature enchantments on the original creature are not copied. During controller's upkeep, Doppelganger may take on the characteristics of a different creature in play instead. Doppelganger may continue to copy a creature even after that creature leaves play, but if it switches, it won't be able to switch back. Yeah, Vesuvian Doppelganger. It's basically just clone it, except it costs an extra blue mana, and at the beginning of your upkeep, it can swap to a different creature. Um, it's very good. It's very interesting. The art is fantastic. It was illustrated by Quentin Hoover, and yeah, like by today's standards, it's not too powerful of a card. And honestly, I think clone is better. You get practically the same effect, but you don't have to be as deep in blue to use it because it only requires 1 blue mana. And yeah, you can't change it to something else every upkeep, but like if you use your clone wisely, it doesn't matter. Um, really great art, but clone is probably yeah. You agree. Clone is better. I like clone better. Um, this is still pretty good though. It actually like saw some competitive play, kind of. Um, but if you're spending 5 mana on it, like part of the problem is like some of the creatures that got the most play were like Serra Angel or Shivan Dragon, and those are like 5 or 6 mana creatures anyway. The creatures that cost higher than that aren't really good enough to play. So you're never gonna like cheat mana on the ability to clone it. Yeah, Vesuvian Doppelganger is probably better when you consider ETBs. I often don't think about ETBs because they don't even enter into Magic for quite a while beyond what I've talked about. But that's a good point for sure. The art's fantastic. I said that already, but I really like the art. The card's pretty cool. It's slightly worse clone though, or slightly more expensive, harder to cast clone. Really isn't too much else to say about it though. Huh. I don't know what that says. No. No clue what you just said, sir. It took visions for ETB. Yeah. Yeah, with like orangutan and Manowar, right? Those were visions. Uh yeah, anyway. A volcanic eruption. So this costs X and 3 blue mana. The sorcery destroys X mountains of your choice and does 1 damage to each player and each creature in play for each mountain destroyed. Um, this is kind of interesting. Magic the Gathering, not my favorite game. You know, I do kind of see that. I actually did a video where I used a translator to change the Magic the Gathering into Japanese and then made a Japanese Magic the Gathering logo for the Sega Genesis game that came out. So I actually probably should have recognized some of that. Oh well. See you, dude. Thanks for stopping by. Glad to have you. Um, I could talk to. I don't know what's going on there. Oh yeah, yeah. Right. The other one of the ETB creatures. Uh, Volcanic eruption is interesting. Obviously, this is color hate. Um, it's also the blue fireball, except you have to. Uh, um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. This card's not good, right? Funny enough, if you were doing red blue like burn, you could like use this and destroy your own mountains to do damage, but that would never be worth it. This card is pretty bad. Never really saw me play, but it is kind of interesting, and it is kind of flavorful. I guess I'm not sure why Volcanic Eruption would be a blue card, but maybe the blue wizard messed with the environment and activated it somehow or something. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting card. Um, and it goes back to what I said earlier about color hate back in the day. They colors could kind of do the thing that another color could do if they were enemy colors, and it was doing that thing specifically to that color, right? With like red elemental blast being able to counter a blue spell. Yeah, I guess volcanoes are on islands. Yeah, it's too expensive. If this was X blue, there would be an argument that maybe you did use this as a finisher in your own deck. Or maybe you sideboarded against the red mage. That does sound more badass. Houndoom is pretty badass too. It's a cool card. I've always wanted to find a use for it, but never have. Yeah, that's where I kind of sit on it. I like this. I have dreamed piles of cards that would be like, look, this is gonna do it. Yeah, and they're all bad. It's too expensive. It's too specific to be used for its like actual intended purpose, and it's too expensive to use in a shitpost kind of way too. Uh, I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. It was done by Douglas Schuler. The art's really cool on it. I like the card. It's interesting. I do kind of wish it cost like X blue. I think it would be. You could maybe do something with it sometime then. Um, it still probably would not be good. Uh, let's move on. Let's talk about a wall. Oh. Yeah, three blue pips is a huge ask. It's a huge fucking ask. Uh, Schuler. I guess I don't know. I could be pronouncing Douglas's last name wrong. Uh, I guess I should probably look into that. Did I miss anything else? Three blue pips is a huge yes. Everything about the card is cool until you see the yeah, yeah. The card is a really it's a cool concept for sure. It's just way overcosted for what it does. Like just the blowing up the mountains to deal damage is either niche or yeah. That's what the game needs is a blue dark ritual that would make it better. Yeah, people would run volcanic explosion or what the fuck ever it was called all the time if there was a blue dark ritual. Yeah, they did. It's called I Died. Yeah, that's also true. They did. What up? Uh, Wall of Air. This is a flyer. It's a 1/5 French vanilla wall that costs 1 and 2 blue mana, so it can't attack. It's a 1/5 for 1 and 2 blue. Um, it's pretty bad. I like the art. This was done by Richard Thomas, and I do like the art. I like the styling of it. This is another art style I really appreciate on old cards that you don't see anymore. There's really nothing else to fucking say about Wall of Air though, and I noticed the chat isn't pumping with people wanting to tell me their cool stories about Wall of Air, so maybe we'll just move on. Wall of Air is definitely a wall. At least it stops Sarah Angel. That's true. It does stop Sarah Angel. That's definitely something that can be said about it. Um, this is another wall. This one doesn't stop Sarah Angel, but it is also kind of interesting. Like Wall of Air, Wall of Water is 1 and 2 blue mana. This one is a 0/5, but you can pay a blue mana to give it +1/+0. And you can do that as many times as you have. Varner Strand. Yeah, I have trouble saying it, and I kind of default when I without meaning to. So they were doors and had effects when other cards opened them. That is interesting. Huh. Walls are kind of a tall sell as far as a game design. I like to call this ability water breathing, which is really funny. Um, Pretty funny with animate wall, but wall of water not great. No, it isn't. It's just a matter of not being super surrounded to it. Um, it's something I got to work on with really all of the names though. Why is the E silent? I don't know, man. Um, Anyone have anything to say about Wall of Water? There's it's got fire breathing, but for blue, and it's a wall. And personally, I find walls to be really boring, so I don't really have too much to say about them, other than mentioning animate wall. This one was illustrated by Richard Thomas, and I like the art. Like, I like this style, as we mentioned with the last wall. A little tip on why walls are a part of Magic. This idea was based on a similar concept from a board game called WizWar. Huh, interesting. I'll look into that at some point. Uh, Wall of Water. Yeah, there's nothing really interesting to say about Wall of Water. It's fine. I suppose it's probably one of the more interesting walls because you could maybe do something with like a shitload of mana and animate wall, but why would you? Why would you be bothering? And it's tough to attack into. Um, yeah, that's really all I have to say about this wall. Let's talk about Water Elemental. Christopher Rush. Christopher Rush is fantastic. I love his art. Um, yeah, the wizards and the arts are cool. Um, Yeah, Christopher Rush is fantastic. Uh, very, very fantastic artist. Uh, Water Elemental. This is a 5/4 for 3 and 2 blue mana. It doesn't have any of the dumb island home shit on it, so it's just a 5/4 for 5 mana. Uh, the rate is kind of okay. It's an uncommon. It's okay. Doesn't have flying or any evasion or anything like that. Um, yeah, it's just a vanilla. Uh, there really isn't anything to say about it. Yeah, that's true. The water elemental is easy to miss in the art. His hand is grabbing the ore, which is pretty funny. Um, uh, yeah, he did. He also did lightning bolt, which is, I would argue, almost as prolific to someone who plays the game, not to people outside of it. Yeah, it's a decent draft pick for sure. Like it's a big creature, right? If it, and the casting cost isn't too extreme. By 5 mana, having two of one color should be like pretty reasonable. But there isn't really anything else to say about it. It's not valuable. The art is good. I don't hate the art. It's certainly not like one of the best arts in the set by any means. It's subtle and interesting, which is really cool. Um, and I do like the way that Menges does his water dark against a gray sky. I just really like that he often goes that route. But there's really not much else to say about Water Elemental. Ugh. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Lightning Bolt is great. It's fantastic. It shows up in all of the strongest formats at various points and is like played. Yeah, yeah, I agree. That was the point I was kind of making. Um, oh shit, that's kind of it for the blue cards. Um, Revised blue cards are pretty cool. They were a lot more interesting than white. There was a little bit less coping in trying to talk up some bad cards for being okay in certain instances. There's more good blue cards. Surprising. I know. Uh, but I think that's kind of all I have to say on the topic. Um, do I have an endpoint? Yeah, I guess I could answer questions for a little bit. Tentatively have an endpoint. It is not Homelands. Um, Man, it would be crazy if they power creep Lightning Bolt. There's no way. I don't think there's any way they'll do that. But like it's still really good. New Phyrexia. That's not a bad idea. Uh it- Off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe stop at Old Border. Maybe stop somewhere. I don't know. I will definitely stop somewhere. I'm not gonna do this forever. Uh but yeah, I can't stop before alliances. And also, there's a lot of really cool and interesting cards that come out after that. Like, if I stop at Alliance, I'll never be able to talk about World Gorger Dragon, and I'm really excited to talk about Gorger Dragon eventually. Um, so I don't know when I'll stop, but I will at some point. Um, no idea when that'll be. I'll probably feel differently about it as I continue doing it too. Maybe I'll just want to keep doing it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. Somebody's got to fucking read cards off on the internet, right? Um, shit, yeah. Otherwise, I think after we're done bullshitting, we're gonna call the stream an end for tonight. Pre-EDH. I really like that. Yeah, I don't know that we're making it to the Furby Secret Layer reviews. Stop it, Fallen Empires. Where uh nah. But yeah, I think we're gonna stop here at the blue cards. My throat is dry, and I don't know that I can yap through all of the black cards, and I don't want to start a color and not finish it. Um, thank you for watching the stream. I appreciate it. I'm glad people could come and talk to me about Magic cards and give me their opinion. It's really cool. This was a lot of fun. Um, I will probably be on tomorrow to continue. At this rate, it looks like it'll probably take 3 days of streaming, unless I stream for longer tomorrow, which is possible. Or maybe we'll just get through the cards faster. Who's to say? But if you stop by, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I probably will do all old bordered sets at the very least. Um, thank you for stopping by. Oh, wow, thank you. Man, I'm really bad at saying thanks for getting money. That's still new to me. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super. Um, I will keep doing it. Thank you. Um, yeah, and I'll leave the streams up too. Like obviously not being present at the stream means you can't like say your points to me, which does suck because the whole point of this is bouncing ideas off of each other. But they will go up, so if you are genuinely interested and want to check it out, you will be able to see it even if you miss it. Um, yeah. Once again, thank you guys. I genuinely appreciate it. It's really awesome to see so many people show up and chat. It has been a fun use of my day, just getting the chance to chat with you guys. So I appreciate it. Uh, I don't have anything else to say. Thanks for all the kind words. I hope you all have a magical day. Thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow. Take it easy.